All right, let's get right into it. Picture this, one of the world's most critical shipping lanes just gets squeezed shut. It's like a vital artery for global trade, and right now, it's being blocked. We're talking about the Strait of Hormuz, and believe me, what's happening there is a huge deal with ripple effects for literally everyone.
So what happens when something like that gets blocked? I mean, it's the kind of question that probably gives economists and world leaders nightmares. Because, when a choke point this important gets clogged up, it's not some distant regional issue. Nope, it's a full-blown global crisis just waiting to happen. It can affect everything, from the price you pay at the pump to whether you can even find certain things on store shelves.
And yeah, the world is definitely paying attention. China, a massive economic powerhouse, has already come out and called the whole thing dangerous and irresponsible behavior. That one statement really tells you a lot. It frames this whole situation not just as some military standoff, but as a much bigger story about shifting global power, shaky economies, and this frantic search for some kind of stability.
Okay, so let's break down what's actually happening here. This crisis in the Strait of Hormuz, it didn't just pop up overnight. This is the result of a whole series of escalating moves that have really pushed tensions to a boiling point. At the heart of it all, you've got this tit-for-tat blockade, a back and forth between the US and Iran. Look, the details are complicated, but what it boils down to is this cycle of one side does something, the other side retaliates, and the pressure just keeps building. And the result? They've basically slammed the brakes on one of the most critical shipping lanes on the entire planet. This narrow strip of water is the absolute linchpin for global energy, and right now, it's being choked off.
And when you mess with a linchpin like that, well, the economic fallout is swift and it is severe. We're not just talking about a little regional dispute here. This is a direct threat to the stability of the entire global economy.
So, what gets hit first? The most obvious thing: energy. Since this whole blockade kicked off, oil shipments coming out of the Gulf have just plummeted. That kind of disruption hits the global energy supply chain right where it hurts, and trust me, those effects are felt all over the world. Just to give you a real-world example, let's look at a huge player like China. For them, this isn't some abstract problem. It's very real. Because of the blockade, their natural gas imports for March dropped to the lowest they've been since way back in October 2022. That's not a guess, that's a hard number, a really stark consequence. And take a look at this. It shows you exactly what we're talking about. You can see the trend lines going along, and then, boom, that massive dip in March. This is what a major supply chain disruption looks like in real life. It's not some gentle slope down. It's more like falling off a cliff. What this whole crisis really exposes is just how fragile our global supply chains are. Think about it. Massive trading nations like China. Their entire economic model depends on these routes staying open and running smoothly. When that system breaks down, their whole way of doing business is suddenly at risk. It's a huge vulnerability. So with the economic stakes this high, you can bet the rest of the world isn't just sitting on the sidelines. Absolutely not. What we're seeing now is a massive flurry of diplomacy, with countries all over the globe scrambling to figure out how to solve this thing.
And China in particular has really stepped into the spotlight here. They've actually put a formal plan on the table. They're calling it their 4 propositions for peace. You've got respecting everyone's sovereignty and security, sticking to international law, getting a total ceasefire, and, just working together to de-escalate. It's a really clear move by them to position themselves as a key peacemaker in all of this.
And it seems to be working because they're finding some very interested partners right there in the region. Take this quote from the Crown Prince of Abu Dhabi, for instance. He's basically saying the UAE highly values its partnership with China and wants to make it even stronger. It shows that key players in the Gulf are looking to China as a critical piece of the puzzle to find a way out of this mess.
And it's not just a regional thing either. This sentiment is popping up in Europe too. The Prime Minister of Spain, for example, has been pretty outspoken on this, and he came right out and said that he believes China has a really important role to play in finding a diplomatic end to this. When you hear that from a major European leader, it signals a much bigger, growing international agreement on this. Okay, so all this back-and-forth diplomacy brings us to the final and maybe the most important point of all. This crisis, it's about way more than just a blockade. It's actively redrawing the map of global politics as we speak.
There's a line that sums it up perfectly. At a time of economic uncertainty, China is finding new friends in unexpected places. And that's exactly what's happening. This whole crisis is acting like a catalyst. It's pushing countries to forge new partnerships, alliances that honestly would have seemed pretty unlikely just a little while ago. This really lays out the before and after picture for us. On the one hand, you had the old way of doing things where security in the Middle East was pretty much a US-led show. But now look at what's emerging. It's a multipolar world. China is stepping up as a major mediator, and alliances aren't being built on those old, rigid lines anymore. Instead, they're forming around practical things, like shared economic interests, and just a desperate need for regional stability.
So it all leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. Yeah, this blockade is an incredibly dangerous flashpoint. There's no doubt about that. But at the same time, it's also acting like a huge accelerator. It's burning away old assumptions and forging brand new global alliances in the fire. The world that comes out on the other side of this, well, it could look very, very different from the one we're used to.